So, hello everyone. We're happy to be here today, and we will be talking today about leading LiveOps, so product and production, and the reality of running a live game. So, a quick introduction from us. I'm Valeria, and I've been a producer in Idle Miner Tycoon for the last 5 years, so since 2021. And my background is actually in media and social anthropology. So I didn't come into the gaming industry in a very traditional path. And honestly, I feel like this mix of people and system thinking turns out to be actually a great fit for running a live game. I'll hand it over to you.
And hi, I'm Olivia. I'm a product manager, also working at Calibri Games for the past 5 years. Specifically, I focus on growing our LiveOps. Like Valeria, I also have a degree in media, but unfortunately, it didn't really cover gaming at all. So this has been like my first jump into gaming and also into product at the same time. So it was a big learning experience. Cool. So let's jump into the talk. To start, this is what the talk will look like. I'll give you a quick introduction to Idle Miner Tycoon, then we'll define what makes a game live, how we grew the LiveOps in it. Then I will dive into product and production and how these different roles collaborate, how we together grew the LiveOps in Idle Miner Tycoon. We'll then discuss the balancing game, which is essentially something that we play every game to manage player satisfaction and our team and our success. And finally, we'll end with some reflections on growth and leadership and the things that we learned along the way. So, Idle Miner Tycoon. What is it for anyone who is not familiar? Essentially, Idle Miner Tycoon is a idle mobile game. It launched in 2016, and since then, we've had over 250 million downloads, and we currently have around 3 million monthly active users. And one more, again. And this is the part I'm most proud of, is the fact that we're actually growing again. So typically, unfortunately, as especially mobile games get older, they get harder to grow. And the reason that we're growing again is mostly in part to our live operations. Okay. But first, I want to just make sure we're all on the same page and discuss what a live game is and what it means. Wrong way. This way. We've got it. Nice. Okay, so for me, a live game is a game that continuously evolves. It is a game with regular live ops, i.e. it has new events, new rewards, new challenges, new goals. Players should feel like there's always something happening, that tomorrow feels different from today, giving players a reason to always come back. To give a little bit of a comparison between live games and traditional game development, on the traditional side, you see it's probably not that straightforward, but a straightforward cycle where games will basically be developed over a really long time and then released, and then there's a bunch of feedback. On the live game side, however, we are constantly releasing things and constantly receiving feedback. It can be that a player interacts with an event, we learn something, we make changes, we launch another event, we learn something else. This loop never ends. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about even working in live ops or running a live game. You're constantly learning. Sometimes your best ideas fail. Sometimes something you almost didn't launch is a huge success. But you have this space to experiment and fail and learn and try again to make the best version of your game. So let's talk a little bit about Idle Miner Tycoon really becoming a live game, because, spoiler alert, when we joined it actually wasn't that live. It was kind of less a live feeling, didn't have as many changes as it does now. Nice. We got there. Okay, so to rewind a little bit, this year is Idle Miner Tycoon's 10th anniversary. As you know, Valeria and I joined about 5 years ago, so we've seen the game really grow and evolve over half of its lifetime. When we joined, we were basically given the task of building a LiveOps squad that was going to grow our LiveOps and bring it up to modern standards for LiveOps. But we'd never worked in gaming before, so we didn't know how to build the right teams or to pick the right features, but eventually we got there with mentorship and help from people along the way. So I want to just give a little overview of kind of what we did, what we learned, what our journey was. Nice. So, as I mentioned, unfortunately, when we looked at our LiveOps, it wasn't really operating as a live game. Everything was tied to client releases. Client release meaning that we actually had to ship a version, send it to the App Store in order to kind of get new content out. It meant little flexibility and also nightmare scenarios if your event goes live and there's a bug in it and you have to ship another version in order to fix it. Plus, it was super strenuous on the team. They were just constantly making new versions. On top of that, our LiveOps weren't built, like our systems for our LiveOps weren't built to scale, basically. Every event required a lot of manual effort, which meant the team was just setting up events over and over and over again, and we had less time to actually come up with new things or fun things. And perhaps most importantly, we didn't have the capacity or the systems actually within the game design to frequently release fresh content. A lot of the things were reused, the same event with a different skin, reward variations were the same as last week. There was nothing new to chase. Yes, let's go. So what did we do? We, of course, wanted to improve our LiveOps, that's great, but we didn't just think, hey, let's make a bunch of events, because we knew that our systems couldn't really handle anymore. So instead, we asked ourselves, how do we build systems that will actually allow us to grow this game and make it more fun continuously over the years? Nice. The first and most important part that we did, the first step we did was actually to get to know our players. Who are they? How long have they played for? Do they spend or not? How far have they made it through the game? And then we wanted to know what they did. So do they play existing LiveOps? Do they play the core loop? Do they play for 5 minutes and leave? What are they actually doing when they're in the game? And then the last step, which is probably the hardest step. Oh, back. Sorry. And the last step was, why are they engaged? And this is obviously like often the hardest thing to understand, but basically we try to combine our qualitative data, the stuff that we get from the game, and also our community feedback to understand why are players motivated to play the game, what do they like about it, this type of stuff. And by doing this exercise, we could understand our strengths. What are our players like? What shouldn't we change? What should we make more on? Basically giving us direction on what features to build. So the second part was effectively doing those learnings. We first looked at our kind of rewards, and we knew that we needed to have more rewards. So we made a scalable meta system, reworking our character collection system, which we call super managers, to essentially work different. The first system was super shallow. You often just bought an offer with a character in it. There's no engagement, there's no fun. It's behind a paywall. And instead we shifted it to a fragment system, which allowed us to give parts of super managers in several LiveOps, helping us create more uniqueness in our event rewards and ultimately fun. We also knew that we needed more gameplay events, especially those suited to different levels of players or different types of players, some for early game users and some for late game users, for example. Our original LiveOps was basically an event that was too hard for new users and too easy for late game players. So we knew, so it wasn't really serving anyone or anything. It didn't really work as a LiveOps. So instead, we made a bunch of new different LiveOps events that would suit all different types of players. This gave us things to bulk out our LiveOps with, it gave players variety, and it actually suited the way that they played more. And last but not least, we built better tools. We moved as quickly as we possibly could away from being release-bound and now work with a thing called remote configurations. Remote configuration is essentially a way to push updates to the game without having to ship a version. This allows us to set up, set live, rebalance, fix, iterate upon all of our LiveOps without a version. And this was a total game changer. I genuinely can't imagine operating LiveOps without it and having to release everything. That seems kind of scary, but it really like allowed us to scale overall. We also implemented things like automated testing so that we could scale our LiveOps without overburdening QA teams, giving me essentially the runway to scale our LiveOps in a sustainable way. So by doing this, focusing on data, new content, and tooling, our games look very different for both us and our players. We're no longer client-bound, we have tools, templates, and repeatable processes and don't overwhelm our teams. We have new content frequently for different types of players to engage with, and this results in the game actually feeling alive. Now every day is different from the next. And luckily, at the same time, our numbers are growing again. We're actually seeing positive trends in things like conversion or the revenue that we make per active user. Our LiveOps growth has created engagement opportunities. Those engagement opportunities bring more value to players, and when players see more value, typically they bring better metrics to your KPIs. So, with all that improvement, how did both of our parts look within it? What are my focuses and what are Valeria's? So, first, what's the difference between product manager and producer? We often describe the split between product as owning the what and production owning the how. Product focuses on strategy, content, vision. What should we build? Who should we build it for? Why should we build it? My day is filled with things like checking performance, looking at feedback, finding opportunities. It can be designing different LiveOps event balancings or offers. It can be pitching and making features. And I work more closely with teams like GD or artists. Production, on the other hand, focuses on execution and coordination. How do we actually deliver the thing that we're trying to deliver? What are the dependencies? What timeline is realistic? What risks do we have to manage? Valeria's day is filled with things like managing the squad's tasks, improving processes, managing releases, and working more closely with dev and QA. What's important is neither role can really succeed without the other. An amazing idea that can't be executed well has probably no value. A perfect execution of the wrong idea also has no value. So, despite focusing on different parts, product and production ultimately want the exact same outcomes. They want happy players, they want strong business results, a stable game, and a healthy team. Despite that, we can still slightly be at odds. Product can sometimes be a bit unrealistic or idealistic with what they would like. So yeah, I will hand over to Valeria now to discuss from production side.
Yes, please have faith in me with the clicking. All right. Okay, so let me just rewind a little. Yes, this part I find quite funny because it's actually so true to life for anyone working in the continuous dev cycle. Whenever product and production collaborate, they approach things with very different perspectives. So, for example, when product says that they like to make a small feature, production hears 3 months of dependencies. Very often something that might look small on the surface, especially on a game that has a lot of tech legacy, might end up having a trail of dependencies. Needing to rework a base system, or untangling connections to other unrelated things that break for some reason otherwise, or having to closely collaborate with different departments that are not going to be involved in the development itself, such as data analytics, test automation, marketing. All of those things can add time. Or product might want to run a quick experiment. And such experiments quite often turn into operational chaos. Such experiments quite often involve a bunch of different departments, and if all of this is ad hoc, it has to be put together really fast, so the organization can be somewhat chaotic. Finally, sometimes when we're working on a big new feature, at some point during development, product might say, let's add this functionality to the scope. And for production, this might actually spell out a full feature redesign, since so many systems are interconnected. And of course, we make fun of these interactions. But the thing is that neither side is wrong. They're simply looking at the same problem from through different lenses. One side is thinking about player value and opportunity, without which the game will be boring. The other side is thinking about the execution costs and risks, which determine whether we can deliver at all. And the real magic happens when both perspectives are respected and brought together early. And that's when you stop arguing about solutions and start solving problems together. And this is one of the most important messages in this section, maybe even in the whole presentation, I would say. Great LiveOps doesn't happen because product wins, and it doesn't happen because production wins. It happens when strategy and execution trust each other. The best teams I've worked with were not the teams that never disagree. They're the teams where disagreements happen early, are open and constructive. Product needs production to tell them if something is simply not feasible. Production needs product to envision something that matters to players. And when trust exists, those conversations make ideas stronger instead of creating conflict. And honestly, a lot of our success over the last 5 years comes down to that trust. So now we arrive at the central challenge of LiveOps. Players want more. More content, more events, more rewards, more things to do. At the same time, teams need sustainable workloads. Yes. And people need time to learn. They need time to improve system, to rest, to innovate. If we only optimize for players, we burn out the team. If we only optimize for the team and for the efficiency, players get bored, leave the game, business suffers. So the real question, and what the next part is about, is how we balance them without sacrificing either. All right, and this brings us to the balancing game. Right, so we think about this as a three-part juggling act. First is product. That's player satisfaction, experimentation, revenue, business performance, the things that Olivia already talked about. Second is production and capacity. Do we have enough people? Do we have enough time, knowledge, energy to execute what product envisions? Third is tech and maintenance. How stable is the game? Which technical debt do we have, and how does it slow us down? Or in other words, what technical shortcuts that we have taken in the past are affecting us today and slowing us down, maybe even preventing us from doing what we want? What systems need improvement? Every decision we make is a trade-off across those three. If you push too hard on one of these, the other two will suffer. And give me a second. Yes. One of the hardest lessons that I've learned in LiveOps is that perfect balance doesn't exist. There will always be periods when one area needs more attention. And sometimes you prioritize new content because seasonality demands it. Other times you prioritize technical improvements, maybe because there are tech issues, or maybe you're gearing up for a bigger feature and you need to lay the technical foundation for it. Sometimes you have to focus on team sustainability. For example, you've just delivered a big new feature that put a lot of pressure on the team, and they need the time for cleanup tasks or documentation, something with lower intensity to wind down. And the goal isn't maintaining perfect balance every day. The goal is making sure that no area is neglected for too long. And the goal, yes, not too long, and because if one piece falls through, then eventually everything starts to break. So let's imagine live games, or a live game, as a machine that never stops. You can't pause it. You can't tell millions of players, we'll be back in 3 months while we fix everything. The game continues running, events continue launching, players continue progressing, and of course, the business itself continues, depending on the experience. So improvements need to happen while the machine is running. That means thinking ahead, creating backup plans, and building systems that allow for multiple streams of work to happen simultaneously. Yes. So all of this sounds very nice in theory, but what does it actually look like when you're making decisions in a live game? And we can here use a real example from Idle Miner Tycoon. And here I present to you super managers. Of course, Olivia did already touch upon them, as well as the changes that we've done to the feature from product and design perspective. But now I can give you some insight into it from production and tech side. Super managers are one of the most important progression systems in the game. They're collectible characters with unique effects that buff player stats. And players love them because they feel powerful and they have exciting visual effects. And behind the scenes, give me a second. Yes. Behind the scenes, back when we started at least, they were incredibly expensive to create. Each one required involvement from game designers, artists, developments, QA testers, and of course, product and production, which makes them a perfect example of the balancing game. Yes. So looking at this through the product lens is easy. Players love new super managers, so why not release more? Let's have 3 a month. Let's give them exciting new effects. Let's keep surprising players. From player perspective, that sounds fantastic. But the problem is that product only sees one piece of the puzzle. When, yes, all of those things. When production looks at the exact same request, they see something very different. They see workload, dependencies, scheduling challenges, resource allocation. The reality was that creating 3 completely new super managers every month would consume all available team capacity. And even after all that, we'd only be able to make 1. Which means it would leave no other room for roadmap topics that product might also want to work with at the same time, or for team growth. After all, the team would be working on the same type of project day in, day out, so they wouldn't build skills in any other areas. And without established processes, it also looked like chaos that had to be continuously tamed. So yeah, not the best environment for success, let's say. So the gap was stark. Product wants 3 a month, capacity can barely deliver 1. And then there is the technical reality. At the time, many of our systems weren't built for parallel development, so we couldn't even work on 2 at the same time. So the pipeline was basically single file. And each new effect the game designers would come up with would also often add anywhere from days to weeks of development time. So what looked like a simple content request was actually creating significant cost behind the scenes. Big product ambition, very thin capacity, and a tech base that fights parallel work. So the question is, what did we do to address it? Remember how I said that sometimes you have to focus on one area while lowering ambitions of the other? That was the case here. We had to settle on product side on 1 super manager per month for the time being, and instead focused on the other 2 parts of the balancing game. We solved it by improving the systems, and could then work on more super managers in parallel, instead of being capped at 1. We invested into tooling and templates and automated repetitive tasks. It helped us minimize human errors and standardize the process. We also redesigned core workflows so that different departments don't block each other in the sequence, because of course everything starts with game design, then artists have to do a lot of art assets that do not depend on developers, but developers at the same time need to do certain things, and then of course QA comes in as the last one standing. And it was important that no department blocks the other, because then it becomes operational chaos that I mentioned before. And instead of asking people to work harder, we focused on helping them work smarter. And the payoff was there was roughly 2 times faster delivery, so same feature, but the tech and process fixes unlocked the capacity. And thanks to all those changes, we managed to deliver over 80 super managers in the last 5 years. And yes. The results were dramatic. We reduced the delivery time by roughly half, We moved from rigid systems to flexible ones, from manual processes to tool-assisted workflows, from a single file pipeline to a multi-lane one. And perhaps most importantly, everybody actually understood what the process is. And there's actually something more important. All of those improvements that I talked about were very valuable, but they're not actually the biggest reason we've been successful. Because tooling and processes only really get you so far. The real foundation is something else. The most important system in LiveOps is actually the team itself. You can have incredible tools, amazing technology, perfect planning, but if the team isn't healthy, none of it lasts. For us, 4 pillars matter the most. And it's trust, it's feedback culture, growth opportunities, and shared responsibility. Everything else sits on top of that foundation. So let's start with trust. It means psychological safety. It means being able to admit mistakes. It means raising concerns. It means feeling safe enough to share an idea that might fail and know that no one is going to make fun of it, because anyone's ideas are worth considering. And, truth is a word that's often thrown around when talking about teams. But it is quite essential also because from trust comes the feedback culture. And if the team doesn't trust you, they might not tell you that the feature has flaws, or might be afraid to tell you that feature has flaws. They should be able to say, I don't think this feature solves the problem, without anyone hearing, you're bad at your job. The stronger the trust, the more honest the feedback can be. And of course, this also applies to positive feedback. We should always acknowledge effort where praise is due. Then comes growth. A healthy team is one that keeps growing. One of the biggest risks in LiveOps, as you've already heard, there are a lot of repetitive tasks, there are a lot of things that can feel very samey if you don't actually take care of it and if you don't diversify the kinds of tasks. So doing the same tasks, running the same events, solving the same problems, people do need opportunities to stretch themselves. New challenges create new skills, and in turn, new skills create a stronger team. And then finally, there is another principle, and that is shared responsibility. We succeed together, and we fail together. When something goes wrong, we don't immediately ask, oh, who made this mistake? We ask, what could we have done to prevent this mistake from happening? Or, what could we have done to have helped you in this situation? Often the answer is a missing safeguard, or unclear communication, or an imperfect process. While mistakes can happen to anyone, we should always try to anticipate them and protect ourselves from their impact. We figure out a solution together, and we won't make the same mistake next time. Now, if you think that it all sounds like sunshine and rainbows, and way too idealistic to be true at all times, you're right. What I told you so far is, let's say, our North Star, our guiding principles when leading teams. But as with any principles, we don't always live up to them. There are times when things go wrong, tensions run high, and people are frustrated with each other. That's natural. So they end up being less collaborative. We're all humans, so it's natural for emotions to get the better of us. But I think what matters at the end of the day is that we do course correct. Once we're through the stressful time and we look back, we have our retrospective, we talk about what went wrong, and then we find ways to do better next time. And only that way we can actually keep going. And then, one thing that LiveOps teaches you very quickly is that no single role can carry a game. Let's imagine that product, there it is, has an amazing idea that will bring even more fun to players. But what if it's not feasible to deliver with the people in the time we have? What if both idea and capacity are there, but on game design side, the balancing is so hard or the UI is so confusing that players drop out, the idea doesn't succeed? What if the idea and capacity are there, and the design is clear, and the balancing is very satisfying, it's a perfect challenge, but on art side, the UI style is very misleading. It's hard to understand what to press, what is a button, what is actually just an asset. Or maybe the assets themselves are so big that the frame rate drops all the time. Or what if everything until now has worked out great, But the developers make a rigid, hard-coded logic just to meet the immediate deadline and don't think about scalability. And when 50,000 players all hit the servers at precisely 1 p.m. on Friday, the server architecture buckles under the load and the entire game crashes. And finally, even if every single department delivered their best so far, but on QA side, they miss several critical bugs, or maybe just enough small ones to make the experience very frustrating, players will stop engaging. So of course, it's worth mentioning that there I focused only on the direct development team, so people immediately involved in making a certain feature. And I wasn't focusing as much on departments such as data analytics that are critical to ideation and understanding what went wrong and what we can do better, or marketing, or community management. They also all have a critical role to play here. But as you see, every discipline contributes to success and has the power to make it or break it. At the beginning of the presentation, we showed you how we managed to scale our LiveOps systems and grow our game. Our scaling milestones don't belong to any single department. They belong to the whole team, them all together. And in LiveOps, you don't just ship a product. You sustain an ecosystem. And it takes an aligned and healthy ecosystem of humans behind the scenes to keep a game thriving every single day. Which brings me to running live games to the skills that you gain for professional growth. LiveOps accelerates leadership because of the environment it creates. It forces you into fast decisions because the game won't wait for a perfect answer. It forces constant collaboration because no single person owns the whole machine. And it forces you to operate under uncertainty, making good calls with incomplete information. You're continuously practicing leadership skills, whether or not leadership is in your title. And when I reflect on the skills that I've gained from working on LiveOps all these years, they're not actually gaming specific. It's prioritization. Yes, that looked better before. But it's prioritization, it's decision making. It's something that really shapes your mindset. Resilience, adaptability, leadership under pressure. It's such essential skills for teamwork like communication and stakeholder management. And these are skills that apply in almost any industry. LiveOps just gives you a very intense environment in which to develop them. And if I could leave you with 4 messages, it would be these. First, to keep players engaged, you need regular, fresh content. And for that, you need to understand what drives them. Second, LiveOps is not just about making more and more and more content. It's about building systems that let you keep creating value. Third, balancing product production and tech is essential for the longevity of the game. There's no way around it. You have to be the master juggler. And fourth, and probably the most important one, the strongest LiveOps systems you'll ever build is your team, so invest into it. That is exactly what makes long-term success possible. And before we finish, we'd love to give you an opportunity to know more about Colibri. Mentor and Mingle brings together Colibri Games and Women Eyes to celebrate the journeys of our mentees from the development program. You'll be able to see the final presentations of our mentees and afterwards connect with industry peers and, of course, Colibris themselves. It will take place in the Colibri Games office at Nordbahnhof this Friday at 5 p.m. We'd love to see you there. And you can sign up on the page if you follow the QR code. I will also return to the slide, so no worries. And thank you all for your time. Hopefully you've given you a clearer picture of what's happening behind the scenes of LiveOps. And with that, we're happy to ask any questions if we have time.